Hi, Jesse with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install the Blue Ox baseplate kit on a 2015 Chevrolet Spark. There's 5 main components to look at when you're setting your vehicle up for flat tow. Starting here with the baseplate, that's going to be your structural mounting point to connect the vehicle to your RV or motorhome. Those two connect through the tow bar here. That's just the link between vehicle and RV. Then we have our safety cables. These are here as your last resort in case of a catastrophic disconnect. And typically we would have here some diode wiring connected. However, our neighbor today opted to choose a magnetic light that is wireless, so that'll actually work the same. It's just wireless, so there's no wires connected. And also you would usually see a braking system. Even though we did not install a braking system on this, we will always, here at the shop, we will always recommend that you add a braking system when flat towing, not only to be on the safe side, but also to ensure that your setup is legal in all 50 states. Here we can see what the base plate looks like installed on the vehicle already. You can see your safety cable loop here on the inside, and then our removable arm. To remove that arm, we just pull the pin back, quarter turn, and it will pop right out. To reinstall it, it's just the opposite of that. And then over here on the other side, we have it hooked up here to our Blue Ox tow bar. This base plate will work with almost any other tow bar that's on the market. We have adapters and also some adapters for the removable arms. In the center here, we have a bracket in case you wanted to mount a 6-pole wiring. I had to cut out a little bit on the grill. If you actually were adding wiring on, you would probably have to cut a little more. I just left it here in case our neighbor changes their mind and wants to add that later. Also, if you have a braking system, you would have to find somewhere in here to mount your disconnect switch. So that would be some more additional cutting. As far as hooking up to the base plate goes, you would have your arm in, take your tow bar, extend this arm out, get all your holes lined up, get your pin in and clip your clip down. Then you'll take your safety cable. With these loops, they're in a nice location and they're super easy to just clip your safety cable on. All in all, if you're looking to flat tow your Chevy Spark, then I think this base plate is a really good choice for you. As for the install, it's really not that hard as far as base plates go. You do have to remove the fascia, do some drilling into your bumper beam, and then also some trimming of the fascia. So if that doesn't sound like something that you're ready to tackle yourself, feel free to check out our dealer locator. However, if that is something that you're willing to do yourself, then feel free to watch this video, follow along, and I'll show you how we set up ours. Our first step of our installation today is under the hood. We have 6 push pins that will remove. I have a trim panel tool. You could also use a flathead screwdriver. Just get under that center piece. You don't have to pop it all the way out, but you can. Pull that middle piece out. So to actually make this fascia easier to pull off, I'm going to take this rubber little snorkel for your intake off, because it is hiding one of the push pins that we need to remove on this side. Just pull it out of the way. And then I'll have a 10mm bolt here that I'll pop off and then just fold it back. I forgot there was a bolt. In the wheel well, we have 2 push pin fasteners, same style as up top. Just take your screwdriver or your trim tool. These ones like to fight, so if you have a pair of side cutters, you can kind of loosely grip them and pop that centerpiece out. With those 2 push pin fasteners removed, we can pull this wheel well back, and then there will be a T20 torque screw I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Once I have that screw removed, I'll do that same process on the other side. Under the vehicle, we have 8 7mm screws. Take all those out. To remove the fascia, I have an extra set of hands. My friend Brad here. We're just going to work from the outside in. There should just be clips holding it in from this point. Just pull straight out. And work your way in. And now we'll set that aside. So we need to remove these 2 plastic pieces here, this air baffle, and then this one over here. It's just held in with push pins again. This one has 4 of them. Get that out and set that aside. On this passenger side one, we have the ambient air sensor plugged in and connected to it, so I'll just unplug that and leave that wire there. Now we have these tabs here on the passenger side. We're just going to bend that back. This will make clearance for our base plate. And on the driver's side, we need to remove. So you might be able to just kind of wiggle it back and forth till it breaks off, or you might find it easier to grab a cut-off wheel and just cut it off. We have 4 bolts we need to remove on this inside edge of the bumper. Now we're ready to install our base plate. We'll just have to kind of slide it in. And on the passenger side, we have all these AC lines, so you will kind of have to manipulate them just to get this to sit right. And just make sure, once you're ready to tighten everything down, that you're not pinching any hoses. Next is to install our mounting bracket. I have the driver's side here. Before I try to lift it up into place, I'm going to tape 2 washers onto the back of it, just using some painter's tape here. Just make sure it gets lined up with the hole. This will just make it easier to get everything lined up. Otherwise, you'd have to use a pry bar and a magnet. It's difficult to do. So get these 2 taped on. I got those taped on. I'll need to poke a hole just so we can thread our bolts through once we get it up there. And then we're grabbing the shoulder bolts with the lock washers. So the hardware we'll be using for our brackets are the shoulder bolts with a lock washer, and all 4 of these bolts get red Loctite added to them. Angled part is going to be on our top. Slide it in. Once you get everything lined up, we're just going to finger tighten these bolts for now. And then we'll repeat that process with the passenger side. Here on the passenger side, it is a little more difficult. It's a tighter squeeze. We have these AC lines all in our way. So what I did was I removed these 2 push pins, holding that just so I can reach back here. And then there's a 10mm bolt holding this bracket on. That way we can kind of push these out of our way, and then you'll kind of have to wiggle the bracket down into place. Put our base plate into place. Just lift it up. And once again, we'll need to concentrate on that passenger side with those lines in our way. Just make sure you're not pinching any hoses. Once Once we have everything lined up, we'll grab our hardware. Now we need to install our hardware. It's the 3/8 bolts and the plastic lock nuts. I like to start from the top just to kind of support it. I'll put a top one on each side and then I'll work my way down. Now we're ready to snug all the bolts down. So all 6 of the bolts that we put through the base plate and the 4 bracket bolts. Now we need to torque all the bolts down. If you do not own your own torque wrench, we do have them available here at etrailer, or you can always rent one from your local auto parts store. So I'll take my 9/16 socket, my torque wrench, and a 9/16 wrench. Torque those down to the manufacturer's spec. Those are listed in the instructions. So we need to gain access to this bracket here. What we'll do is drill a 3/8 hole, and then there's a mounting hole on the bracket. So I'll measure this out. That's 13.5 inches from the edge. So 13.5. Just gonna mark it up there, and then we'll be drilling in the center of this area here. So we have a 3/8 drill bit. I just marked eyeballed center of this here. There's 2 sheets. As with all the other bolts, we'll need to add some red Loctite. And I added a washer just because this metal is pretty thin. The instructions say you can do without it. Just slide that bolt in, then put your nut on, and then we can tighten it down. Now we'll torque both these bolts down. Now we need to install our safety cable. This is just the last line of defense in case of a catastrophic disconnect. You're going to want to make sure you miss wires, you're not squeezing any wires, so I'm going to slide it through that hole, under that wire, then come around. You just want to make sure that your cable is wrapped around a structural part of the vehicle and then also wrapped around your base plate. So I'm going to have to get around twice. So once you have this pretty tight, there's no slacking around and you're not messing with any wires, you'll take your clip, make sure you get it through both. And then there's actually a bracket here that is just for this. So just make sure you get your clip through the bracket, then tighten it down. Now the instructions say to hold the entire fascia up to the vehicle and then mark out where we need to cut on this grill. I actually think it's going to be easier if we just remove the grill and then we can really mock up the fascia and decide where we're going to cut. So just a few Phillips screws and some clips and this grill should come out. What I did is I just worked one clip at a time, pushed it in, and then kind of jammed my fingers just to make sure that those clips don't re-engage. Worked my way all the way around, and just get ready to hold it once you get to the last clip so it doesn't fall. This is what our vehicle looks like with the grill uninstalled and the fascia just mocked up for now. So as you can see, it's going to be a lot easier. I can make smaller cuts, just kind of keep cutting away, mock it up. That way we're not just going straight with a giant hole that would maybe be too big. So I'm just going to kind of mock it up, mark it. I'm going to aim to the point where I will possibly have to make another 2 or 3 cuts, but I just think it's going to look cleaner that way. Here in the passenger side, we do need to reinstall at least part of this baffle, just because the ambient air sensor hooks onto it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of hold it up. This cut does not need to be perfect, so I'm just going to hold it up, kind of make a rough line so we can clear our base plate. I'll just cut that out with a multi-tool or some tin snips or something. So I got that roughly cut out. Again, it's going to be hidden behind the bumper, so it doesn't really matter how it looks. We just need a mounting point for our sensor here. So before we put our pins in, just go ahead, plug that in, and push some pins in, and at this point we're ready to reinstall our fascia, just the opposite of how we took it off. With the fascia reinstalled, we can take a closer look at our cuts, and I think everything looks pretty clean. As you can see, we didn't have to take much out, just this honeycomb pattern. We cut it out for where our arms go, then our bracket on each side. We didn't run into any fitment issues. Everything's fitting pretty tight. Anyways, that's been a look at an installation of the Blue Ox baseplate kit on our 2015 Chevrolet Spark.